In 2013, when we would talk about, oh, hey, we're building AI, I remember investors literally telling me, like, hey, don't call it AI. That's going to sound like a science fiction project. We focus on causal AI, fairly different from a lot of the generative AI stuff. We want to be the company that's not afraid to take on the hard technical question of it. For the first year of using our product, it was about $100 million of new profit directly from using Akazi.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you for joining us today. And we're excited to hear about the story of Ikasi and how you came up with this solution, what problems you were trying to solve, and a little bit more about Anthony.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so about 13 years ago, this is 2013, I think a lot of us and our friends had started different data science practices. We had friends who were in the really early teams at Capital One, Facebook, Instagram, like Lyft and Uber, as they had to get a lot more profitable. And I think one of the common themes we saw throughout all of this was that, we were kind of in little silos, building some modeling or trying to do some predictions on how we should be optimizing pricing. But we weren't really building an AI version of this. You could do something that was much more profound if you could actually figure out some hard scientific problems, if you could crack the code on how to make this enterprise ready, and if you could have an AI that could do this on a continuous basis rather than just a smart data scientist modeling one individual thing, that was always going to beat any manual process, right?
What was the jump, in 2021? So ChatGPT, I think version 2 or 3 came out, and did it affect your business in positive, negative ways?
I think it affected us for sure, but in kind of indirect ways. In 2013, when we would talk about, oh, hey, we're building AI, I remember investors literally telling me, like, hey, don't call it AI. That's going to sound like a science fiction project. They don't say the same thing anymore,
right?
Clearly, right? And I think that world has changed completely, where now people do feel a lot of urgency, and everyone's like, okay, it's clearly coming. That being said, our core product was not really affected by this. We focus on causal AI, fairly different from a lot of the generative AI stuff. So we are really focused on those kind of hard problems of like, what's the right treatment for every single customer? How do I hyper-personalize that down to the individual customer? And how do I continuously experiment with this and have thousands of experiments while you sleep to dial in exactly the right incentive, the right person? And that's a continuous learning kind of problem. That's a causal problem, fairly different from the generative AI kind of world.
That's so amazing. And you must feel so above the curve now that everybody's running, towards AI and slapping AI left and right. Do you feel like you have solid competition right now?
We have what I would consider a head start on the rest of the industry. We've spent 10 years plus on R&D, so it's not like we're just a wrapper around some new hyperscaler model, right? So there is core technology here that we do have a lead, in front of. Now that said, what I do run into a lot is a lot of confusion. There's noise. There's no doubt there's noise. It is sometimes tougher cutting through this and making clear what do you do versus what everyone else is doing.
Well, now I have like a million additional questions that I was planning to ask you, still ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, when it comes to your solution, what LLMs are you using?
The things that we do are really proprietary. What we've developed a lot of proprietary just modeling techniques and everything. So it's not really just about taking LLM, but primarily what our product is centered around is really just a lot of R&D work that we did. So a lot of causal inference, a lot of looking at every sort of reinforcement learning technique and classic machine learning technique. I think the differentiating factor for us has always been, we want to be the company that's not afraid to take on the hard technical question of it.
How big of a difference, or what is the difference of you managing clients in Europe versus Latin America versus the United States?
I think there's always regional differences you got to be somewhat conscious of. I think,
especially regulation-wise, AI regulation-wise, does it affect you at all?
It's interesting. I think we avoid the worst of some of the regulation stuff because we're not crawling a ton of information. We're really helping enterprises make use of the data they already have. And we don't even accept personally identifiable information or confidential information. So the first stuff, even from the setup and the premise, we avoid a lot of the need to get into heavily regulated space. Now that said, you have to be, absolutely conscious of what local regulations are. I mean, really whatever your enterprise needs to kind of go through to go live on anything.
Do you have specific industries that you usually work with? Like you have some specific niche?
At this point, we started out much more in the hospitality industry, where you have large loyalty programs and you have a lot of kind of folks. We've since moved pretty broad-based to hospitality, to banking, to retail, to airlines, to whatever. One thing that's been giving us a lot of confidence over those years and that journey has been seeing the proof points, right? Like, before we entered, a new industry, would it actually work? I mean, the first time we saw it actually live in trading and it's like, hey, this is working as well as all the theoretical results that we had, that's a huge confidence booster, right?
If you decide to become a product manager, we want you to check out Upskill PM because this is where we train you to become a product manager and also help you land a job with companies like Akazi. And my next question is, what keeps you up at night?
I think you have to be alert, right? You see the risks in almost anything that you're doing, whether it's product or go-to-market strategy or whatever, like you have to be on top of it. There's a mantra though that I'm fond of. Business is fundamentally people, but a lot of times it's also just people. These organizations, companies, product organization, whoever, it's a group of people and you got to get them aligned on stuff, and people are complicated.
Hardest part. Usually you can't automate all the things and give it to a robot, at least not at this point. Brings me to another question. When it comes to employment, a lot of people are stressed and worried about what it is that they need to even learn and study at this point. And when you look at your new hires, what are you looking for?
I think that there's perhaps a need for a mentality shift, I think, in how we talk about AI even. Because I think a lot of people, very justifiably so, are afraid, oh, will AI replace my job? I think there's also the other side, though, of thinking about, how can we build AI that's actually creating new experiences, new value? There are folks that we have worked with. There's a company that we worked with that measures how much new profit our company generated for them, and just by directly using us, right? And for the first year of using our product, it was about $100 million of new profit directly from using Ikasi. And in the same breath, that organization is also thinking about, oh, let me automate away a call center or something. There's some other AI applications where they're talking about that. But the call center optimization was like maybe $5-10 million of expense. And I think it's a really powerful thing if you can say, hey, I can help your organization grow by another $100 million versus I'm just saving $10 million here. Honestly, if you are in an organization that's bringing more value and you are the person who's bringing in something that's, hey, this is AI technology or AI bet or whatever that's going to drive forward more value for my company, you're not going to fire that team. But I think some of the fundamentals still matter. Take something as straightforward as like software engineering. I think part of it is developing what is valuable as a senior engineer. Am I understanding the right architecture of what we should be building? Are we also making this in a way that is as high impact as we can, right? For us, we put a big premium on folks that are doing the underlying research and building the underlying algorithms behind a lot of this AI research. It is the strong math background, the strong computer science background, the pretty deep thinking around how you do solve some of these R&D problems, right? It's not like you will invent this just by prompting. So that, in some sense, is not really being changed by AI. The core function is not really changed by AI there. The other thing I think is really interesting as well, and we do look for, is we put a really big premium on trust. I have certainly observed that there's just so much junk out there right now, right? Like there's a lot of noise around, let's build a trusted relationship. Let's make sure that we are spending the time to listen to people, like actually meet them face to face and hear what the problems are that they're having. Because, not everything is a technology problem. Sometimes it's a communication problem or it's a trust thing, right? I think it's people who value building that relationship, people who can communicate it really well, and then also people who have strong experience too, to come out as trusted advisors.
We are talking about the different skills that people need to get hired by you.
One thing I've definitely observed is that you have so much junk getting out there that's like AI generated right now, right? In a moment when there is so much like almost online noise, I think we take a slightly different tact. I think we definitely believe in like building strong community, like trusted relationships. We want someone who is experienced enough and understands that industry well enough, for example, to come off as a trusted advisor. It's not just, hey, I want to talk to Anthony because he's the guy pushing some AI product, but no, Anthony is actually the expert on this class of problems. If you're able to establish that sort of relationship, that's a relationship bound in trust, even if you're not talking the technical side of building up a product, but even the go-to-market and the marketing and the sales and everything, that still matters, right? Like having a trusted relationship matters. Coming off with integrity matters. Coming off with strong expertise in something that people care about matters. And I think it comes hand in hand with a really healthy appetite to learn. To me, I think the most valuable trait of leadership is teaching. I think people who are great teachers and have a voracious appetite to learn, that's special. Having that sort of mentality, I think, is really unique and really valuable.
All right. Thank you so much for all the tips and for speaking with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We hope you liked this episode, and we want you to subscribe so you can see more upcoming videos like this.